All right. My name is Ian O'Hara, and we are doing these events once a month, as asked by the late Peter J. Duffy. And I'm going to read his favorite quote from a great book written by a Professor Buck back in 1908. It is sometimes said that grammar is a collection of rules for correct speaking and writing. But this is not strictly true. The rules of grammar are like the laws of physical science, such as chemistry, physics, astronomy, and physical geography. These sciences are not a collection of rules telling the winds and the tides, for instance, what they must do, or prescribe how a certain acid and a certain base shall unite. They only report and explain the happenings. And so, grammar does not say to us directly, you must speak thus and so, but only English people at the present time do speak thus and so, for the following reasons. Knowing this fact, we shall undoubtedly choose to speak so too in order to easily and precisely understand others, to avoid the appearance of eccentricities, ignorance, but grammar goes no further than to report and explain the usage of the language, leaving us to choose for ourselves whether we shall follow them or not. I'd like to welcome you to the Blueberry Patch, presented by Ink Tank. And December is our month of journalists. And last year we chose the late, great Christopher Hitchens. And this month we have chosen Hunter Stockton Thompson, who was born July 18th, 1937 in Louisville, Kentucky. Born to James Jack Robert Thompson, Sr. I'm here to present a basic biography. And we're going to have some wonderful presenters up here to read from some of his novels and maybe some works of magazine art. I'm going to give you a brief history on his early life. His mother was Virginia Ray Davison, who was born in Springfield, Illinois, actually 2.5 blocks away from Abraham Lincoln's residence in Springfield. And her early youth was living that close to a period of history that wasn't too far away from her birth year. And she chose a path of being a librarian early on in her life. She was quite the voracious reader. Why am I telling you about Virginia? Who the hell knows? You know, the damn guy came right out of her. So she's probably important. Now, his father was incredibly important for two reasons. One, gave him his height and his athletic ability. And two, because of his death, which propelled Hunter Thompson into his first bout of writing, which I will get to. So anyways, Jack and Ginny meet at a fraternity party at the University of Kentucky. And Jack at this point in time was a divorcee with a son, and which again was a little bit odd for the time, but you know, what the hell. That was in 1934. 1935, almost a year to the date, give it a few days, they married. And in 1937, their first son was born, Hunter S. Thompson. I could only find two quotes from his mother about the birth time of it. It was damn painful, was her quote. and I have never understood why my young boy does what he does. So anyways, he was the eldest of three. June of 1940, his brother Davison Wheeler was born, known as Davis. And in December of 1943, the family settled at 2437 Ransdale Avenue in Cherokee Triangle, which is a fairly affluent neighborhood of the Highlands in Louisville. And the mother returned to work as a librarian, both in the school as well as in the local private library in Louisville. And in 1944, he starts elementary school at Ian Bloom. Ian Bloom, give a brief little ditty about Ian Bloom. It was the first modern new way of teaching children's school in Kentucky, which meant it wasn't just rote. It was, let's learn about a lot of different things and let's read the hell out of whatever it is that we could read. And they had one of the best libraries for an elementary school in the state of Kentucky. I don't know if that says very much. It is Kentucky, after all. No offense to anybody from Kentucky. You can cut that out.
They had the book and the Sears catalog.
What's that?
They had the book and the Sears catalog.
That's right. That's right.
Or at least most of them.
1947, he became known as a very inquisitive child. So inquisitive that at a certain point in time he had, working with some chemicals, his neighbor's garage kind of blew up. He was very hands-on. Anyways, and at this point in time, he also became a very active athlete. He starts playing basketball and baseball and football, and he's damn good at it. And this sticks with him for the rest of his life. In 1948, he becomes active in his school's library as well as in the neighborhood library, which is called the Louisville Carnegie Public Library, the only Carnegie Public Library in Kentucky. 1949, his brother James Garnett was born, and he called him Jimmy Boy. Anyways, 1950, he enters Highland Middle School, and in 52, he graduates 4th placement in his class. Now, there's no accurate number of classmates I couldn't find, so if anybody has that, that would be great to know, because he could be best of 4. I mean, 4th place of 4. I don't know, but I highly doubt it, being a public school, that it was. 1952, July, at the age of 58, his father passes. This is Hunter's first recognition with reality of life. With his father's passing, the family fell into dire straits financially. And they would not recover until he became famous. Anyhow, 1952, he enters the Atherton High School and is some bios state that he chose to leave. He has some notes from his own journaling that states that he basically told the administration to go fuck themselves due to issues that he found with their library cataloging system. Now remember, he's 14 years old. He transfers to Louisville Male High School in September of 1952, a few weeks after he is removed from Atherton. And he's accepted to a membership at the Athenaeum Literary Association, which had been around since 1862. and only the top-notch families children were members of this group. And he begins to write and journal at this particular point in time. I mean, he began to journal when his father passed, but this is really when he begins to write. And he's writing just odd little things, perceptions, what he's seeing, what people are giving him as ideas. And he begins to read and adore J.P. Dunleavy's The Ginger Man. And he talks about the Ginger Man in a number of his personal papers, that it was a very inspiring piece for him. But doesn't go into any description of why. And this is where he meets his first friend for life, Porter Bibb. 1953, he continues to write and journal, becomes co-editor of The Spectator, which is the magazine that the Athenaeum put together. And he begins to write formal articles for this Spectator. 1954, he's still writing, he's still journaling, and he's doing his athletic best. But he chooses not to take a team. He's doing it all outside of school, intramural type of stuff. And then in 1955, another watershed moment for him, his second of many. He is charged as an accessory to robbery. And his mother's quote at this point in time is, "I told you about my boy." So you can assume what that means. So at that point, just a few weeks later, the Athenaeum Literary Association ejects his membership due to the legal problems that he's going to be involved with. He's then found guilty and serves 31 days in Kentucky's Jefferson County Jail. He meets a guy there in Jefferson, Kentucky Jail that just so happens to be a friend of another guy that we talked about a couple months back, a fellow by the name of Greg Carson, who just so happened to be a good friend of another great writer, another great American writer, and I'm drawing a blank, Jack Kerouac. Thank you very much. And he becomes fast friends with this guy as soon as he's left the jail. So he spends 31 days in Kentucky, Jefferson County Jail. And then the superintendent refuses him permission to take his final exams. So he never officially graduates from high school. That's his third blow. And that pisses him off against the establishment. You know, and a lot of his early journaling was not anti-establishment. It's just, hey, look there's some problems here. There's some inconsistencies. What can we do about it? Now he says, fuck it, there's some big issues, and they need to be revealed. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to reveal them. So, 1 week and 1 day later, he decides to take his gun and his swimming equipment and go into the harbor and sink every single boat in the harbor. And what does he do? He immediately enlists in the U.S. Air Force. Can't touch him. Different period of time back then. Of course, nobody knew really that it was him that had done that. But anyways, he was unable to graduate. If he had graduated, now we don't know what his testing numbers would have been, but he would have graduated third in his class just with his GPA that he had had. Never mind the potentiality of the testing. So I'm going to leave you at that particular point in time. Okay, that's his early life, and I'm going to bring Martha up here to read a couple of items.